Today I'd like to introduce you to what I consider the best mouse and rat trap ever, the bucket trap. Here's a picture of the finished product, and here's a picture of me for all it's worth. Here's the finished product again. There's peanut butter smeared on that tin can, the tin can centered over the bucket on a stiff wire, a little bit of water down in there. All it takes to make this: get yourself a 5 or 6 gallon bucket, drill a hole a little bit bigger than the wire you'll be using to support the tin can. Go the opposite side of the bucket, drill another hole. The making of this bucket, I'm going to use galvanized wire, about 14 gauge. It's flexible enough to work with, but still stiff enough to hold the broth can that I will be using. I cut the wire a little bit longer than the bucket is wide. I'm going to figure out where on the bucket that broth can is going to go. I'm going to take a broth can, it's either beef broth or chicken broth, so you can pour out the ingredients once your holes are punched. Punch a hole dead center on both ends. Then you drain out the broth that is inside. The hole needs to be big enough to allow your wire to slip through there very loosely. I'm figuring out about where that broth can is going to go. Put a little kink in the wire to keep it in place. Do it on both sides of that broth can, a little kink in the wire. That will keep your broth can from rolling over towards the edge of the bucket, which will defeat its purpose. Take off the label, of course. That way it will be ready for smearing of the peanut butter or cheese or whatever you're going to use. Peanut butter seems to last forever. Make sure the wire is straight, doesn't have a lot of bows or dips in it. Put it through one of the holes, then the other hole, then re-straighten that wire. Try to center this broth can over the bucket. Once you do that, bend the wire that's outside the bucket to hold it in place. Unfortunately, I didn't center that broth can very well, so I'll adjust it here just a little bit, but you get the general idea. Remember, use a board or something to allow the mice or the rats to get up to the buckets, but don't allow that ramp, that board you're going to use, to overlap the bucket by very much. I use Jif Smooth peanut butter. It seems to stay on there for ages. Make sure the can turns easily. If you just have mice problems, a couple inches of water in the bottom will be sufficient. If you have rat problems, they can jump out unless you give them enough water to swim in. So maybe 4 inches of water per rat. During the winter, when the water would normally freeze, I use RV Antifreeze. It's non-toxic, so if your pets or children get to it, it won't hurt. Thanks for viewing. Bye-bye.